negotiate with terrorists. Audrey Kurth-Cronin, Professor of Public Policy at George Mason University and author of How Terrorism Ends, a specialist in terrorism, believes in some instances you can and should negotiate with groups that use terrorism. I came across one of her papers on negotiating with groups that use terrorism, lessons for policymakers. In it, she says, negotiations during terrorist campaigns are most effective if they are consciously employed to redirect the contest into a less violent channel as talks proceed and the campaign winds down for other reasons. They carry risks and can be a serious challenge to the democratic state that enters talks without a firm domestic mandate, managed expectations, and a backup plan for what will happen if or when terrorism recurs. In her conclusion, from a state's perspective, negotiations are not a promising tactical means to end terrorist campaigns on their own, but if well handled, they're nonetheless a wise and durable strategic tool for managing the violence, splintering the opposition, and facilitating its longer-term decline. However, democratic governments have often negotiated with terrorists. According to a 2007 article on its website titled Negotiating with Terrorists, the U.S. Council on Foreign Relations says that while the argument against negotiating with terrorists is simple, democracies must never give in to violence and terrorists must never be rewarded for using it. And yet, democratic governments often negotiate with terrorists. A British government maintained a secret back channel to the Irish Republican Army even after the IRA had launched a mortar attack on the Prime Minister's official residence, which nearly eliminated the entire British cabinet in 1991. The Spanish government dialogued with the separatist group Basque Homeland and Freedom, known better by the acronym ETA, only 6 months after the group had killed 21 shoppers in a supermarket bombing. It says a key objective for any government contemplating negotiations with terrorists is not simply to end violence, but to do so in a way that minimizes the risk of setting dangerous precedents and destabilizing its political system. So how can we compare the U.S. prisoner swap with the Chibok girls situation? And would negotiation be the best at this point? I asked one of our in-house analysts, Professor Nsongura Ndombana. You already know about the prisoner release deal that helped the only U.S. soldier captured in Afghanistan to be released from Guantanamo Bay into the care of the Qatari government. What do you make of the deal?
Well, I think it's from the perspective of an observer. I'm not an American, and I was also not part of. We are not told how the negotiations actually started and ended. But from the perspective of an observer, I rather would think that what Obama did was to put priority on an American life, even though it's just a single American life, and to ensure that whatever he needs to give to trade off in order to secure one American life was worth it. So I think from that perspective, they have done what is best for the American people and for the American society.
But usually the belief is not to negotiate with terrorists. Could this deal be considered double standard on the part of the Americans?
I wouldn't think so. For every general rule, there is always an exception. And also, we should bear in mind that the American society is ideologically divided. Under President Bush, which is of the conservative bent, the Republicans, they probably would not have gone this far in terms of negotiating. But under President Obama of the Democrats, you know, they are more liberal in thinking, in ideology, and they are more humane in their foreign policy. Obama is not a warmonger in a way, and even in fighting terrorism somehow, he tried to ensure that rules of engagement are clearly defined. So to that extent, I wouldn't think it's a double standard. Rather, it's probably a lesson for other countries, including third world countries like Nigeria, to also know that there could be times where you may have to bend backwards a little bit for the purpose of protecting your people and your citizens.
Just last week, we learned our own government refused a similar deal with Boko Haram for the release of the over 200 Chibok schoolgirls. Boko Haram is asking, or was asking, that 100 of its members held in prisons be released first. How is this not similar with what happened with the U.S.?
Well, we might not really compare apples with oranges. Number one, you would discover that, for example, the single American that was released, it was in the course of a military engagement. And so in a way it was an enemy combatant, he was a prisoner of war. Now those that Boko Haram are holding are not prisoners of war. They are just innocent children who were studying to better their lives and the lot of society, when some terrorist groups went into that school and kidnapped them at gunpoint, and we don't know what has happened to them since then. So for me, there is really no basis for comparison here. But having said that, whatever it will take, even if it means bending backward to negotiate, if there are human beings that could be negotiated, because the problem with the Boko Haram is that they seem to be faceless individuals, which nobody can pin down to and say these are the people who are really responsible for this. We have been hearing Shekau on television and here and there once in a while. But they've not really been able to come out and say these and these and these are the people responsible whom we can negotiate with. But for me, whatever the president could do to bring back those girls, even if it means bending backward, I will be in support of it, because these are innocent children who are just trying to get to their lives and get a decent education that will better their lives and the lives of their parents and society. So there's no basis for comparison. They are not prisoners of war. They were not engaged in any warfare with the Boko Haram people. So really, there should have been no basis for it in the first place. But if we factor in the situation on ground now, and the fact that there are parents of these children who are lamenting since they were captured in April, and up till now we don't have any clue, I think the president should do what he needs for, even if it means bending the rules to bring back those girls.
So, this becomes a referral for future terrorist negotiations. Is that good or bad?
I rather would not feel so. I think every situation will be determined on its own merit. I wouldn't subscribe to the fact that in every situation we have to negotiate with terrorists. But when you get to a situation where we are now, where it's like all options are on the table, but there is no result. As we are speaking now, foreign countries have offered their help for almost a month now. The Americans are here, the British are here, the French are here. I understand the Israelis are here as well. But so far, we are not seeing any tangible result in terms of bringing back those girls. Now, so I think every situation should be judged on its own merit. Even if we negotiate now, we are able to get those girls back. I think what we need to do is for Nigeria to be able to provide adequate security for its citizens. We should not get to a situation where we have close to 300 girls, kidnapped, young girls, innocent girls kidnapped. So I think we can't draw a general conclusion that it means opening the door for terrorists. Every situation should be judged on its own.
Welcome back. Now, this past week has been a trying one for the family of Godwin Ayogu, the 18-year-old Nigerian student who was brutally murdered in Cape Coast University in Ghana. On Wednesday, his parents brought home his remains after much paperwork and red tape observed, as would be normal in a case like this. Sunday was a wakekeep. We've told this story a couple of times before, how the late Godwin was killed, first especially by his Ghanaian roommate, until after further investigations revealed the real suspects happened to be 5 of his friends, people who he had known through school as he was in his final year, third year, beg your pardon, when the incident occurred. Police in Accra is working to find out all they can to make sure that this case is not swept under the carpet. Meanwhile, the 5 suspects will be appearing in court in Ghana on June 6th. That's the same day the late Godwin Ayogu will be buried. We can only imagine the grief and respect the privacy of his family at this time as they mourn the loss of their first child. Now, this is a case that's drawn the attention of the Nigerian government through the Nigerian High Commission, which has aided in investigations. However, there are other cases of Nigerian students meeting their unfortunate death in foreign countries, killed by foreigners, suspectedly. In fact, one case is currently before Nigerian lawmakers. We remember the late Toba, 19-year-old son of renowned sports journalist Aisha Falode. He was allegedly thrown to his death by a couple from the top of his apartment building in Dubai on February 15th this year. The Dubai police said it had concluded its investigation in the case and have concluded that on that day, Toba was drunk, sitting on the railing